We've been joined by Professor Vincent Anigbogu, Director General, International Institute for National Transformation. Thank you for joining us, Prof.
Thank you so much.
Before you came, we've been talking leadership with Mrs. Ibanga and the kind of leadership we have and what we don't have and what we need. And some Nigerians have been tweeting in. Let me read this email from Moody Akpoboria. He says, I'm paraphrasing it now because it's quite a lengthy email. So let me just pick out one portion of it. He says, we now realize that integrity and honesty does not transform to capacity and competence. That's from Moody Akpoboria. But in the face of that email and what Mrs. Ibanga talked about, how Nigerians have become sort of like, there's nothing we can do, there is no hope. How can this country get the leadership fix it needs, the true leadership fix it needs? Or maybe we should start from, what's the difference between leadership and true leadership?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege. You know, these are issues that are burning very hot in the heart of Nigeria. First of all, a good leader, there's a distinction between leadership and a leader. Leadership is the position and all the functionalities required to fulfill it. So a leader that occupies that position must be pre-qualified to make sure they have not just the character, but the skills to execute the required functionalities of the position. There are basically 6 capacities that anyone that can lead effectively must have. Number 1 is moral capacity, the ability to enforce policies fairly, equity, making sure that everybody can have a sense of belonging. Every citizen feels that they are represented. Number 2, intellectual capacity that requires understanding of building of systems and processes that make for good governance. You have to be trained. You must have it because that's what you monitor in the people that in your team that's helping you to lead. If you lack that capacity, you don't know what to expect, you don't know what to monitor, of course you cannot lead. Number 3, emotional capacity. The ability to stay calm in spite of challenges that assures the citizens that all is well in spite of challenges. We need to develop that. Number 4, of course, physical capacity, because of the enormous challenge of leadership. You must have the vitality, you know, to carry it all, because once the body fails, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are, it doesn't matter your moral standard, you cannot execute. The body disappoints, and that's true, of course, exercise, health, eating well, resting well. And of course, the 4th capacity, is it the 5th?
Yes.
Is the networking capacity, ability to work with diverse group of people, being able to relate with them, making them belong, and knowing which to pull in at any given time so that you can function. And of course, another that I will add there is what I call a multicultural aspect, where you should be able to deal with people from different backgrounds. And one of the ways to do that is to try to speak as many different languages as you can, because whoever you speak, his or her language, feels belong. So with this understanding, then there are 2 key aspects of leadership then, the character aspect and the functionality. You can have the character, you're a person of integrity, you're a person of transparency, but when it comes to executing strategic plans, you lack it. You will still fail. Others have those skills, soft skills, but they don't have the character. So you need both. So a nation that wants to continually progress is deliberate then in developing those kinds of people. You set up special schools where the best of the best is groomed in anticipation of the future needs of the nation. It's not when it's time for election, you start running around. You pick from a carefully groomed set of people in whom the vision, the passion for the nation has been,
the question will be then, in a situation where, when Mrs. Banga was talking, she talked about the fact that the political class appears to have kept the citizens impoverished, so they do not demand for their rights or that which is supposed to be theirs. So who would set up those schools? And then how would you, those specialized schools, how would the selection into those schools be so that it's not seen to be tainted with sentiments, ethnic or religious sentiments,
yes,
but it's about the nation? Or maybe we should even start from the point where we say, how do we get a national vision that will drive everybody to setting up those kind of institutions?
Okay. Well, let me start with the last. Believe it or not, we already have a national vision. If you visit our national anthems, they're already laded with where the nation should be. One nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity, where there is justice and prosperity. That's a national vision. And I think everybody can buy into it. So the next question is, how do we get there? How do you get there? Let's just, I'm passionate about Singapore. I don't like to speak theoretically. Let's go to a nation that have gone from third world to first and see what did they do. Every problem we face in Nigeria, somebody has already faced it and solved it and moved on. China has faced it. In terms of population, they are far larger than us. So population is not a factor. Because when you raise Singapore, people say Singapore is small compared to Nigeria. But what about China? China has overcome. What did they do? Singapore selected some of the best student performers through, of course, exams, by admissionary exams. They selected the best performers, regardless of their background.